What's up guys, Shawnthebro here, and today we're going to be going over cancels, so canceling commands into other commands in our fighting game tutorial series. When we are in our match, we can start to perform certain actions that will be tagged as cancelable, and if they are, we can then cancel into other moves. So for example, if I am to start doing my backward dash, it is this animation right here. Now before in the series, we didn't have anything tied to that. So we could just do the backward dash and that was it. But now I've added a new attack we can do, a new command we can do. So if I backward dash and press the light button, I can cancel out of the dash to then do this command. I also have one for the running forward. It is the same attack, but I can be running forward, and then I can press the button to cancel out of running forward, and then go into an attack. Now those were both movement states, but you can do the same with actual attacks as well. Cancels are good for individual attacks, like being able to cancel from one into another. They're also useful for some of our state-specific attacks, like I was showing the backward dash or the forward run, which is another topic I was going to cover anyway. So this is a 2-for-1 today. Before we get started in today's episode, I want to give a huge thank you to my YouTube membership and Patreon members and supporters. I really appreciate you guys, and you are really keeping this series alive. I am so excited to keep working on this week after week because of all your love and support, so thank you so much. Also, before we get started on this episode, if you'd like to get caught up in the series, you can check out this playlist right here, which will link together every single episode that we have. Alternatively, if you only care about cancels, you can go ahead and click this episode right here, which is where we went over some of our initial combo logic. That will be important for today's episode for our cancels. So you might want to check that one out to just make sure that you're fully caught up on the mechanics we're going to be going over today. With all that said, we can go ahead and get started. So the first place we're going to go today is the code, and we're going to go to our fighter template character.h. There are two things we need to do to make sure that a move can be canceled out of. Technically, they can have a lot more rules than that, but there's two things we need for sure. And the two things are, we need to keep track of the current move or the last move that we used. As long as we keep track of the last command that was used, even if it's not the current move, we can determine if that move is still in use using our attack state. But we do need to know at least the last command that was used. The second thing we need to know is if that command is cancelable. So can we cancel out of that command to go to another command? So let's scroll down first to our variables. And I went below my move buffer and I made a command called last command used. So fcommand last command used will keep track of the last command that each character has used. This could be useful for a lot more things than just the cancel. But specifically, this is going to have the data that we need to determine if we can cancel out of that command into another. So we want to make sure that we're keeping track of that at all times. I made it a U property with edit anywhere, blueprint read write with a category of input. So essentially we can access and use this in the blueprint. So that was the first main thing that we needed to add today. Keeping track of the previous command that was used or the current command that is being used. That's what this variable is for. Now the second main thing we need is to determine if a command is cancelable. And that is going to be up at the top by our structures. So I'm going up to my fcommand structure. And in here, I'm adding a boolean called canCancel. Not all commands can be canceled out of or into. In this case, we're only going to be caring about which commands can be canceled out of. So if canCancel is false, we cannot cancel out of this move. But if canCancel is true, we can cancel out of this move. So I use the same U property for all the other variables in the fcommand structure. And I have just added this bool canCancel. Now, we have a lot of logic that we're going to implement in our code. But let's go into the editor. Make sure you build, compile, run that. And we are going to go to our command data. So my mutant command data. And in here are all of my commands for my characters. Now if you come in here right away, you won't see canCancel. And that is because we have our fcommand data, which has all this data in it here. But then we also have a blueprint structure that we call fcommand details. And the reason we have this blueprint structure is because the blueprint one holds a lot more data, that we don't need our code structure to have, such as the manual startup active recovery frames, the video path for the command video on the command list, and the character class that it belongs to. There's also a few things missing from this that are in the code structure, such as is charging and has used command. But one thing we do need to make sure that we add so that we can set the can cancel boolean in this data table is our can cancel boolean in this fcommand detail structure as well. So don't forget that is important that we have the fcommand detail structure. Again, to add a variable to a structure is easy. You just hit new variable in here and you'll create a new one. And I created one called can cancel that is a type boolean. So it's essentially the exact same variable as the one we have in the code. The only reason, again, that they are different structures is because we have more in the fcommand details, and the fcommand details has some other use cases. We don't necessarily want to loop through all of this data when we're going through our commands, but we do need this data for things like our command list. Now if you go back into your mutant command data table, you should see that the can cancel field is here. So you can click on any of your rows and then scroll down to your can cancel section here. And you can enable it by pressing the check. Otherwise it will be false, so it will not be checked. Any commands that you want to be able to cancel out of, you're going to check can cancel. I've added 2 new commands for today's episode, so backward dashing light and forward running light. To add new things to your data table, you just press the add button right here. Like I said, I have backward dashing light, which just has one array element, which is the light attack, and it requires us to be in the dashing backward state to perform it. Only one max frame between inputs because it's only one input, so we don't want to keep looping and keep searching for that singular input. I've added a description of a quick attack during a backward dash. Now the forward running light I've also added. So again, name is forward running light. It also only requires the light attack, but the required state is running forward. Max frames between inputs is 1, and the description is a quick attack during a forward run. You'll notice can cancel is false in both of these, and that is because we're not canceling out of these moves. We're going to be canceling out of our running and out of our dashing. However, we don't even really have to be able to cancel out of the run to make it work with the current system. The dash is a little bit different than the run. So the dash executes as a command and then takes control of the character, so the character could not move at any other point during the dash. So we do have to cancel out of the dash to be able to attack during it. However, the running forward, does not actually take control of the character. So they can release and stop the running at any point. So we don't actually have to cancel out of the run. That's an important distinction to make because sometimes you may want cancels, such as when 2 commands are going to be linked together, or certain actions such as, again, the backward dash are then a command. And other times, you may just need to have one command that has a required state, such as the running forward. So now going to the backward dash command, this is the same command that it has been. Basically, we have to press backward twice within 12 frames of each other, and we will perform the backward dash. The backward dash is cancelable though, so we can cancel out of the backward dash into the light attack. Now if we take a look at the forward dash, I know that this says forward dash and it's technically running forward, but that was covered in the running episode. You can have either backward dash, backward running, or forward running. I just did one of each so that we could show them off equally in the series. So the forward dash is actually my forward running animation and command. I have to double press forward and then I go into the running forward state. However, you'll notice this isn't cancelable. Again, the forward dash does not put the character into any sort of attack state, so the character is not blocked out of doing other actions. So when they press the light attack, assuming they're in the running forward state, they will go to the running forward light attack. However, the backward dash does require the can cancel because when you go into the backward dash, there is an attack state set for startup, active, and recovery. This way the character cannot stop and do other things during the dash. Right now, even with this can cancel, the only thing we want to be able to do during the dash is cancel into other moves. We still don't want them to be able to do things like crouch or jump during the dash. Anyway, I know that was a lot, but it is important to make that distinction because they are different, and certain games do them differently. Certain characters within certain games can do them differently than other characters in the same game. There's a lot of specifics here, and so I'm just making sure that we're all on the same page. Now, with all that out of the way, we can go back into the code. And before we go to the CPP file, I want to make a function as well that is going to be used to determine if we are able to cancel at the current time. Because even if the command allows us to cancel, we may have other restrictions to when we can cancel out of a move. And so I'm scrolling down to my determine command to use function. And above it, I've added a new function now called can cancel out of command that returns a boolean. So I made it U function a blueprint callable, so we can call it in the blueprint if we need, but we won't need it today, so that is up to you if you want to include that or not. And like the comment says, can the current command be canceled out of into another command or action? That's really what we're trying to figure out here. Now once you make this function, we're good to go. So I'm going to go to my fighter template character.cpp. Scrolling down to the constructor, you could set your last command used to a default value in here, but it's not required because by default it will be an empty structure of the F command type. And so it won't have any of the data that we need, and thus it won't break anything when it's not used. It's just going to be empty before any commands have been used, in which case that's perfectly fine. We do need to scroll down and make our can cancel out of command function. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to put it in the same place that I put it in the header file. So I'm going to scroll down to my determine command to use function. And that is right here. I'm going to go right above that and make our can cancel out of command. So bool, class name, a fighter template character, : can cancel out of command. Now, the rules to cancel out of the command depend on your game and your logic. It really is up to you, but I'm going to show you my rules and you can follow them or come up with your own. In order to cancel out of a command in my game, I'm going to say that the attack state of the character has to be recovery. So they already have to be in the recovery action to cancel out. You could also put this to be active, or you could ignore the attack state altogether. If you want them to be able to cancel out of the first frame of the current command, then that's up to you. For me, I want the character to have to be in the attack recovery state. When the character is in the attack recovery state, I know they've already used their other attack. Doesn't matter if they hit or missed as of now, but they've already used it, they've already spawned the strike hitbox, and now they're going into the recovery. In the recovery, they can then cancel. And the last command used can cancel. So basically, the last command that was used, or the current command we are using, has to be cancelable. If it is not cancelable, then we might as well just give up now and return false. We can't cancel out of this command. The command does not allow it. I've also added two other OR statements here that aren't really required for my game because of the way I set the commands up, but I just want to show you that this is another thing you can do in your game. So additionally, if you want to do movement states like you're dashing backward or you're running forward, you may say, I want all of these movement states to be cancelable all the time. It doesn't matter what the last command used was. It doesn't matter what the attack state is. I just want it to be, if the character is in the dashing backward state, they can cancel out of it into another action. Or if the character is in the running forward state, they can cancel out of it into another action. Again, I don't really need these because, as I explained earlier during the data table section, if I'm running forward, I don't actually block the character from doing anything, so the player can control the character, and thus we don't have to cancel out of the running forward state into another command. And additionally, with the character state equal the dashing backward, if the character is dashing backward, then I already have the command on the data table for dashing backward as cancelable. So we will be able to cancel out of them when we're in the recovery section of the dashing backward, which happens just a few frames in. Basically, once we apply the force for the dashing, we'll enter the attack recovery. Even though I know dashing isn't technically an attack, it does follow the same rules for attack states. And since the command is set to be able to cancel, this would return true. We don't actually have to check this if statement. Having this in here like I do now actually allows me to cancel out of the dash immediately upon entering the dashing backwards state. We don't even have to wait for the force to be applied. But, like I said, I'm just showing you other rules you can add in here. You don't have to have these. If we can enter this if statement, we know that we've met at least one of the conditions that we need to be able to cancel, and so we are good to go. We can say, yes, we are able to cancel out this command. We can return true. Now, otherwise, we return false. You could add an else statement here and return false, but it's really not required, because if we return true here, we won't execute anything else in this function, and thus return false won't be hit. But if we can't go into this if statement, we're not going to go and hit return true, so we're automatically going to go and hit return false. So now we know the rules for if we can cancel out of a command or not. Now a good place to use this is in determine command to use. So determine command to use gets called on tick, and we figure out, do we have a move that we want to use? If so, can we use it? And if we can, start the command. So previously in this series, we had everything in this function except for this function call. Before, we were only allowing new commands to start if the attack state was equal to none or recovery. So if we were on the started state of the attack or the active state of the attack, we could not start a new command. That would not allow for cancels, and it also wouldn't allow for input buffering during that time, so we couldn't buffer a move by pressing inputs while the previous animation was still playing, unless we were in the attack recovery state. So if we're in attack state none, we're not in any command in any attack. We're just sitting there waiting to receive an attack. So of course we can use it. But recovery was when we would allow buffering. So if we pressed an input while the attack state was recovery, then we could buffer that command and use it. But if we add another or here, or can cancel out a command, if this is true, we will be able to start the command early. So again, if you'd like, you could do this can cancel out a command if the attack state equals e attack state : e attack active, or attack state equals attack state recovery and last command you use .cancel. If you do want to do this method, you'll want to put parentheses around there so that we make sure this section runs first. It's one of these attack states, and the command can be canceled out of. And now, with this added to this if statement, you will be able to trigger a command if the command is cancelable and the attack state is at least active or recovery. So see how easy it is to change things, and this heavily modifies how the gameplay will go, because being able to cancel at different points in the animation or different points in the attack opens things up like more combo potential. Alright, additionally, in our start command function, this is when we actually trigger the command, assuming we meet all the other requirements. And if we do, I want to set the last command used to be equal to the character command's current command value. So whatever command you're setting has used command to be true on, we want to set last command used to that value. Again, this is useful so that we know what command is currently active or was previously used, if it's cancelable, and then we can use the attack state to determine where we're at on that command or on that animation as well. Alright, now we can go to the editor. So build, run that, get the editor back open. And we'll want to go to our character BP, base character BP specifically. And we have an update character commands event in here. And we were using the data table to set all the appropriate data for our character commands array. Since we have updated the fcommand structure and our fcommand detail structure, there will be the can cancel boolean on each of these. And we want to make sure we pass along can cancel from the break fcommand details to can cancel in the make command. If you don't see can cancel on either of these, you can just click on the node and make sure that it is enabled as a pin in the details panel. So now each command will have the appropriate value of can cancel, so that when we're trying to perform the move, the game will know if we can cancel out of it or not. Now let's go into our animation blueprints and I'll show you how I set up the dash attacks and the running attacks as well. So in our state machine, we had the command dash forward and running forward. Whatever one you're using, this will still work. Just make sure that you're doing the appropriate logic. So if you're using dash instead of run, then you'll want to drag off your dash command, make a new state, and I just call the new command running forward light. For me, I'm going off my running forward, but again, it will work off dash, so it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you have another state off of your movement that you're trying to add an attack to. So I have running forward to this new state, running forward light. Now, to go from running forward to running forward light, I do the same thing that we do for pretty much all of our other commands, and that is to check to see if the character command at the specific index that we know this command is at, you know the command is at this index, because if you look in the data table, row 25 is forward running light, and the initial value is row 1. Since our array starts at index 0, then you can basically take the row that you find in the data table, subtract 1 from it, and then that's the value of the character commands array that we want to access. So 25 minus 1 is 24. Thus, when we search for character command at index 24, we get our running forward light. I'm going to hide my can cancel here. It's not required, but just so you know, when you add new variables to your structure, you may have to hide them again if they're bothering you, because you will see them whenever you break the command structure. Then I just check if we have used the command or not, and we'll be good to go. We will be able to go from running forward to running forward light. Now, additionally, since the running forward light is a command, just like our other commands, I do still have my start attack transition that I have for all my commands here. So don't forget to add that to the start transition event. And then the command running forward light can also return to idle when the move is finished. So here's the transition rule for that. And it is automatic rule based on sequence player and state. So basically, once the animation finishes, if it has nowhere else to go, which it doesn't, it will then return to the idle animation. And again, like with all my other commands, make sure the start transition event now has end attack transition. We're finishing this attack. We want to reset all our values related to it. So here's my new state, command backward dash light. And I have my transition rule, which is getting the character command at index 23, because in the data table, backward dashing light is 24. Make sure we use our -1 rule. So 24 minus 1 is 23. And we check to see if we have used the command or not. If we have, we can then go into the backward dash light, and the start attack transition will play on the start transition event. Then the backward dash light can return to idle. It will be done automatically based on sequence player and state once the animation finishes, and the end attack transition will play in the start transition event. Now I'm actually using the same animation for each of these, but you can see that I have this animation which has a started, active, and ended. So the proximity box will spawn here, strike hitbox will spawn here, and we'll enter a recovery here. Make sure that this animation does not loop, as we don't want to keep playing it when we perform the command. Now there's one other thing I'd like to go over at this point, because we previously had light attack being able to go into the medium attack when we had landed our hit. But that stopped working with other advances that we had made in the series, and so I want to revisit this real quick. So light attack to medium attack transition rule. So basically we can cancel out of the light attack into the medium attack. So instead of checking to see if was medium attack used on my character reference, I'm now checking to see if the character reference, character commands at index 1 has used command is true. So I can get rid of my was medium attack used here. That's not required anymore. Then I'm checking to see if we can combo and if we have landed the hit or not. Can combo is a boolean we don't really need anymore, because as we go farther and farther into our combo logic, you'll see that we don't need this specific boolean here. If you're using it, you can feel free to keep it. It's totally safe to keep currently. I'm going to temporarily disable this and we'll figure out the final solution to what we're going to do with this boolean in the near future. But for now, I'm just going to disable that and set it to be true, or remove the pin from the AND statement altogether that requires it. It's up to you which one you do. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to disable it and check it to true, so it's automatically true. So basically, we're just checking to see if this command has been used and if we've landed a hit. So we can only cancel from the light attack into the medium attack if we have landed the hit. Now, character commands at index 1 is in fact my medium attack, so that's why I was checking for index 1. And then additionally, we want to make sure that the light attack is cancelable. If it is cancelable, we will be able to actually press other inputs during the active or recovery phases of that attack, and thus the has used command here will be valid. Now if we play our game, and we're going to go to practice mode because I can see the hitboxes in there, and so we know that when the strike hitbox is spawned, which is the red hitbox, that we have entered the attack active state, which is the earliest time we can cancel out of a move into another with our current logic. Now, when I press the buttons, light, medium, you can see that this waits for the move to finish and then performs the medium attack. This is input buffering. This is not canceling. Now, in the AnimBP, we were checking to see if the character has landed the hit. So if we land our hit, we will be able to cancel the move into the other one. So let's say light, and as soon as we hit, we can hit the medium button, and then we will go into the cancel. So again, for reference, this is how slow it is normally, and that's how much faster it is with the cancel. If I go light and spam medium, it goes into the medium attack well before the light attack animation finishes, because it cancels out of it and then into the medium attack. So essentially, to cancel out of a move into another, if it is reliant on the end of an animation, you will have to have a transition rule between them. So light attack to go to medium has to have some sort of rule. But there you go, guys. That's everything I got for you today. Now we have cancelable attacks, and we have the ability to spice up our game by changing the fundamental logic of how we can fight. Is it better to cancel out of a move? Is it better to let the move go and then buffer it later? We have a lot of different options, a lot of different flexibility here now. I hope this video helped you, and if it did, please subscribe. There's more for myself in the series than anything else you can do, and I just really appreciate it. I also want to give a huge shout out again to my YouTube membership and Patreon members and supporters. Thank you guys for all the love and support. I'm really grateful and very, very appreciative of all that you do for me. Additionally, if you had any issues with this tutorial or any of my tutorials, feel free to join the Discord community. There's a link in the description, and it is completely free, so you don't have to worry about that. But like I said, guys, that's all I got, so thank you so much for watching. I'm Shawnthebro, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, guys.